and he booked 3 rooms, one for him, one for her, and one for the kids. None for me. She walked up behind him, sun hat tilted voice, sweet as syrup, and he looked at her like I never existed. My real love, he said. I didn't flinch, I didn't scream, I just stepped back. That night while they celebrated, I opened my laptop and started ending his world. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments and hit subscribe for more true stories. It was supposed to be our reset, a family trip, 5 nights, white sand, no arguments. I booked the resort months ago, handpicked every suite, every restaurant down to the dolphin tour on Mia's birthday. I thought maybe we could fix things here. Marcus said he was too swamped to help plan, but he packed fast enough when it was time to leave. He always does that. Absent for the small things, early for the big ones, the ones that let him perform. We drove down from Chicago in silence. The kids had their headphones in. Marcus answered work calls like I wasn't next to him, like I'd faded into windshield reflections. Still, I smiled. I ordered matching beach hats online, bought sunscreen for Leo's sensitive skin, even packed a bottle of Marcus's favorite cologne just in case he forgot to bring it himself. He didn't thank me. He never really does. But I told myself maybe this was just stress. Maybe he just needed rest. Maybe we all did. The resort was stunning. Key West sun pouring through palms, salt air, mixed with gardenia and seaweed. Bellboys in crisp uniforms, families laughing by the pool, a steel drum band playing near the bar. I wanted to believe this was a new beginning. Until I saw her. She stepped out from the white taxi like she belonged there, perfectly timed, perfectly dressed. She waved at Marcus, and Marcus waved back. That's when my heart stopped pretending. They walked to the check-in desk together, 3 rooms. Marcus listed them off without looking at me. Her room, the kids' room, his room. I just stood there beside the luggage I had packed for all of us. No one asked where I'd be staying. Not even Marcus, not even the kids. Leo looked confused. Mia fiddled with her bracelet. No one said a word. I stayed silent too, because I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to see everything. And he just showed me more than I ever needed. The room was quiet. Too quiet for a resort by the ocean. I sat on the edge of the bed barefoot on cool tile, listening to the distant splash of children at the pool. Marcus had just left, said he needed a quick stretch before his spa appointment. His laptop sat open on the desk, still glowing, still unlocked. He never leaves it open, never. I walked toward it without thinking. The hum of the air conditioner felt louder with every step. It wasn't the browser that got me, it was the tab. Gmail. Marcus's inbox. A subject line bolded in gray, regarding asset division, moving pieces soon. I clicked. The thread expanded like a trap. The sender, david.l@hartsfieldlegal.com, a name I recognized from his firm's legal team. She's still under the impression that all joint holdings are equally split. But as discussed, she's never asked for clarification. Use that. Marcus had replied, she's history, wrapped in asset class. Once the restructure's done, I'll be free to rebrand completely. I stopped breathing. Rebrand. Was I a product now? Another piece of his portfolio to spin off. I scrolled. There were spreadsheets projections on my spending notes on which accounts were clean and which had emotional weight. He had labeled my savings account, soft closure path, possible guilt leverage. My jaw clenched, but I didn't cry. Instead, I closed the email, minimized the screen, and stood at the mirror. I looked at myself, a woman who built him, who protected him, who gave him children's strategies and decades. And he called me history. I smiled. Because Marcus didn't know I was always better at reading numbers than he was. He just forgot whose name was on the accounts behind those numbers. Dinner was set on the terrace, candlelight. linen napkins, ocean breeze with a hint of rosemary. Marcus had requested the private corner table overlooking the water. I had requested it months ago, but tonight he sat at the head, and Alana sat beside him, in a crimson silk dress I'd seen once years ago in an old photo. She called the waiter over, her voice honeyed and sure. "We'll have the 2012 Amarone," she said, then turned to Marcus with a smile. Just like that night in Venice, my fingers stiffened around my glass, not from the wine, but from the familiarity. Leo glanced at me. Mia kept twirling her spaghetti, though slower now. Alana leaned in her shoulder, brushing Marcus's arm. "You remember the alley with the rose vendor? When we ducked into that bistro and stayed until dawn?" Marcus chuckled. "How could I forget you made me cancel my flight home?" He looked directly at me then, not by accident. Anne said, "One of the best decisions I ever made." The wine arrived. 2 glasses were poured. Evelyn none. Alana raised hers. "To second chances," she said. I didn't raise mine. I just watched the way Marcus rested his hand on her thigh like muscle memory. The way Alana spoke to the kids like she was auditioning, oversharing, overstepping. "Mia, maybe tomorrow we can get our nails done. I saw a spa menu with a mommy-daughter discount." Mia blinked, said nothing. I took a bite of cold risotto and let the silence sit beside me. Let it wrap around me like armor, because the woman in red thought she was winning. But she was drinking wine from a glass I paid for, at a table I reserved under lights. I chose to illuminate her downfall. The kids were asleep. Or pretending to be. Mia had curled herself around a stuffed fox. Leo left his phone face down, too still for a teenager. I waited until the lights dimmed, then opened my own laptop. No noise, just the soft glow against my fingers. I typed slow, deliberate muscle memory from years of midnight audits. The login page blinked once, then opened. Rourke Holdings, Legacy Asset Account. Still active, still mine. I clicked through. 3 real estate portfolios. 1 dormant but high-yield startup fund. And the founding shares of a consulting LLC, the same one Marcus now claimed he built alone. I stared at the document from 208. His handwriting rushed and smug. "Let's just keep it simple. You hold it, I'll manage." Back then it felt romantic, now it felt surgical. He'd forgotten I never transferred ownership, never switched the tax beneficiary, never handed over access. Because he never asked. Too confident, too loud. He thought the face of the company was the one holding the mic, but I held the ledger, and the ledger had a memory longer than his ego. There was one line item I hadn't touched in years, a silent fund labeled contingency, only if burned. I smiled, not cruelly, not triumphantly. Just knowingly, because Marcus thought the account was sleeping. But it wasn't, it was watching, and tonight it stirred. I wasn't looking for anything, just walking past the guest laundry room on my way back from the concierge. The door was cracked open, steam drifted out lavender softener and heat, and there on the counter that red dress, folded neatly, still warm. Alana's. I almost kept walking. But something caught my eye, a loose thread. A corner of a tag half tucked into the seam near the waist. I leaned closer, not a store tag, a donation label. Rourke Foundation, Evelyn Private, do not return. My breath stilled. I knew that dress. It was mine. The silk folds, the hand-stitched lining, the small snag inside the left sleeve from where I'd brushed against a champagne flute. I wore it once on our 10th anniversary. Marcus had spilled wine on his tie that night, and I had laughed for the first time in weeks. It was the last gift I ever gave myself before I started giving everything to him. I donated it 2 years ago through a quiet women's shelter program run by our foundation. No press, no photos, just a clean box and a note that said, "Let someone else feel beautiful again." And now she wore it. to my dinner, to my seat, to my husband's side. I didn't touch it, didn't scream. I just stood there until the washer beeped and the moment broke. Then I turned and walked out, still calm, still quiet, because she hadn't just stolen a dress. She'd walked into the ghost of a woman she never had the strength to become. I unzipped the side pocket of my purse and pulled out the folder I hadn't opened in years. Cream-colored, edges worn, smelled faintly of cedar and old ink. Inside a map of everything he thought he owned. The incorporation papers, the legacy clauses, the notarized agreement we filed just in case before his first media interview. He never asked for it back. He thought it didn't matter. He thought I didn't matter. Once during a fight over dinner, he had said, "You're not a threat, Evelyn. You're a fixture, like good lighting." I remember laughing that night, not because it was funny, but because it was honest. Now, under the dim light of the suite, I laid every page across the bedspread. Each signature, each clause, each quiet concession I'd made to keep the peace. He built the illusion, but I kept the deed. My hands didn't shake, my breath didn't catch. I just placed the last page flat, smoothed the crease, and whispered to myself, "Let's end it beautifully." I booked the dinner through the concierge, table for two, 7:30 p.m., same seaside deck where he once said, "Let's build an empire, just you and me." He replied in under 10 minutes. "Finally, just us. I knew you'd come around." He didn't know what I'd come around to. I dressed carefully, not in red, not in white, but black. Simple, clean, the kind of black that doesn't beg to be seen, it just commands space. Mia watched me from the doorway. "Are you going out with Dad?" Her voice barely lifted over the buzz of the minibar. I nodded. "Just dinner." She didn't smile, just stared like she knew something was shifting. Marcus was already at the table when I arrived. Tan blazer, open collar, his confidence poured like the wine he ordered before I even sat down. "You look like the version of you I first fell for." I smiled and tucked the flash drive deeper into my clutch. The waiter brought oysters, he toasted. "To rebuilding, to you finally letting go of the past." I raised my glass, but I didn't drink, because he had no idea the past was exactly what I'd come here to collect. Under the table, my phone vibrated once. One message, one word from Margaret, my attorney. Wow. I locked the screen and looked up at Marcus. His eyes glinted in the candlelight, charmed, triumphant, unaware. He thought I was there to forgive him. He had no idea I was there to watch him toast the last night he'd ever feel powerful. Marcus leaned back in his chair, hands laced over his stomach, like he was proud of the performance he thought I'd just applauded. "You know," he said, "I always knew we'd outgrow each other eventually. It's not a bad thing. It's evolution." He sipped his wine like it tasted better when he was talking. "I mean, we've had a good run. The kids are almost grown. We're just in different chapters now." I tilted my head. Let him talk. After tax season, I was thinking, we go our separate ways. Peacefully, clean split, no drama. You keep the house, I keep the company. I raised an eyebrow, just slightly. "It's cleaner for everyone," he continued. "And Alana, she understands the transition." That word again, transition. He made betrayal sound like business restructuring. "You deserve someone stable," he said. "Someone quiet. You've always been steady." I smiled, steady. Under the table, my phone vibrated again. Account 3 disabled. Asset transfer completed. Access revoked. Each ping was another piece of his illusion falling into the hands that had always owned it. He refilled his glass. Didn't notice I hadn't touched mine. "We can talk to the kids in the morning," he said. "Frame it as a mutual decision. Show them we're adults." I folded my napkin, tucked it by the plate. "And you always were good at framing," I said. He laughed like I'd complimented him, like he'd won something. And somewhere across the resort servers, his access to the business dashboard blinked red for the very first time. Dessert came with a sparkler. Too sweet, too loud. Marcus clapped like a child. Took a picture for Instagram he'd never post. I watched the flame fizzle out. Soft, quiet, final. He reached for his wallet as the waiter placed the bill gently on the table. His fingers brushed the leather case, but his phone buzzed first. He looked down, frowned, swiped, then frowned deeper. That's odd, he murmured. He tried the card again, slipped it across the folder. The waiter returned moments later, eyes careful, voice softer. I'm sorry, sir. It's been declined. Marcus laughed, the fake kind. No worries. Try the second one. Another swipe, another pause, another apology. Perhaps you'd like to call your bank. He shifted in his seat. Sweat pricked at the edge of his hairline, not from the Florida heat. I stood slowly, reached into my clutch, and placed a crisp 100 on the table. This should cover my half, I said. He blinked. You're leaving. I nodded. You've been planning this exit for months, Marcus. I just scheduled mine better. He looked down at this money, then up at me, then back at the receipt, where the words supplemental card, Evelyn Rourke, were now stamped, inactive, in pale red font. I turned away, walked past the bar, past the saxophonist playing something soft and minor, past the same hostess who greeted us with, "You two make such a striking couple," and into the night air, warm, open mine. Behind me, Marcus was still sitting at the table, fork in one hand, phone in the other, and the bill between them. The lobby smelled of citrus polish and strong coffee. Checkout time, families in flip-flops, luggage wheels echoing over marble. I stood by the gift shop, thumbing through a glossy magazine about Caribbean coral reefs. But my eyes weren't on the pages. They were on Marcus. He stood at the front desk, hair a little disheveled, tie, missing voice too loud for the early hour. That's not possible. Try it again. The clerk, young polite with a name tag that said Isabel, typed gently, then looked up with practiced concern. I did, sir. Twice. Alana joined him, her hair still damp from the shower, lips pressed in irritation. What's going on? Nothing, Marcus muttered. Just a tech glitch. I've got another card. He pulled out another, a black one with gold trim. It beeped once, then turned red on the screen. Declined. Is this a joke? Isabel kept her composure. Sir, the room charges are quite substantial. 3 sweet spa treatments, 6 bottles of imported wine, and a jet ski excursion for 4. We have funds, Alana snapped. We're not some... Would you like to contact your bank? Isabel offered. Marcus stepped back, pulled out his phone. Tried calling, straight to hold. The kids stood a few feet away. Leo was scrolling his phone, but his posture was tight. Mia gripped the strap of her duffel bag, eyes flicking toward her dad. Even at 13, she could feel the room collapsing. Marcus's voice rose. You're telling me I can't check out of a hotel because my wife... He paused. Because someone tampered with my accounts. I watched him try to gather control as 2 security guards subtly appeared near the concierge. Alana looked at him, then at the clerk. We can use my card, she whispered. She handed it over, declined. A beat of silence. Marcus's shoulders dropped, his jaw clenched. Where is she? He muttered. Where the hell is Evelyn? I stepped back into the aisle of beach towels and overpriced sunscreen, placed the magazine back on the rack, and turned toward the exit. Let him ask, let him feel it. He didn't know yet the real checkout had happened the night before. And he wasn't on the reservation anymore. The chaos lingered in the air, just beneath the hum of the lobby ceiling fan. Marcus's voice had dropped to a hush, but the energy around him wasn't quiet. It was crumbling. Leo stepped forward, still calm, still taller than the last time I noticed. Mom paid for everything, he said. Marcus blinked. What? Last night, Leo continued. I saw her at the front desk. She signed for all 3 rooms, used a different card. Alana turned sharply. What do you mean? Leo didn't flinch. She took care of it. You just didn't know. Marcus opened his mouth but no sound came out. The security staff edged closer. Sir, if you're unable to settle the charges, we'll need to begin formal protocols. He glanced at his phone again. Another buzz, another notification. Incoming email, Row Holdings. Urgent notice. He opened it, read the first line, froze. Effective immediately, Marcus Rourke is suspended from all executive privileges, pending internal investigation and board review. Attached. Summary of asset freezes. Revocation of signatory authority. Transfer of interim control to Evelyn Rourke. His hands trembled. Alana tried to peek over his shoulder. What is it, Marcus? He stepped back, nearly knocking over a guest's suitcase. His eyes scanned the lobby like searching for an exit he could still afford, but there were none. Not anymore. Evelyn was gone. No dramatic goodbye, no confrontation, just silence and a paper trail that led back to everything he took for granted. Mia tugged at Leo's arm. Can we go now? They turned, walked toward the glass doors, past their father. He didn't stop them. Didn't even try. And in that moment, surrounded by luggage, he no longer owned charges. He couldn't pay, and children who no longer looked back. Marcus finally understood what it meant to lose quietly. The house wasn't big. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, a front porch that creaked in the breeze, and a kitchen with peeling linoleum that smelled faintly of lemon oil. But it was ours. I signed the lease on a Tuesday morning 1 week after the checkout Marcus never recovered from. By Thursday, we had keys. By Friday, we had pizza on the floor and blankets instead of chairs. Leo picked the back room, said he liked the tree just outside the window, said it reminded him of the oak at Grandma's farm. Mia chose the room nearest the hallway. Easier to sneak into my bed at 2 a.m., she joked, though neither of us said we both needed that closeness more than we admitted. On Saturday, we painted her walls purple, a rich, defiant purple with silver stars she placed one by one. Leo had paint in his hair. Mia had it on her nose. I had it in my heart. That night, we made pancakes at midnight, just because we could. No rules, no someone tapping a watch, no lectures about sugar or mess. Just laughter, just music from Mia's playlist. Just my children learning what peace tastes like. Bye. The next Monday, my old client David Chin called. Jennifer told me you were independent now, he said. I never liked going through Marcus anyway. He offered a contract without needing to hear my pitch. You were always the mind behind the curtain, he said. Glad the curtain's gone. I converted the garage into an office, painted it soft cream, left the window open most afternoons. Clients started calling directly, referrals, emails with my name in the subject line, not his. I didn't need to prove anything. They already knew. Mom, some days were still hard. Leo missed his old friends. Mia sometimes asked if Alana was still at that other house. But mostly we rebuilt, quietly, layer by layer. We planted herbs in chipped mugs, hung fairy lights on the porch, had Sunday mornings where no one rushed. And one day, a Wednesday, Mia handed me a drawing she made. It was our new house with 3 figures standing in front. A tall boy, a girl with paint on her cheeks, and a woman in all black holding a watering can and smiling. Beneath it in pencil block letters, "This time we grow slow." That night after they went to sleep, I opened the cedar box I hadn't touched in years. Inside was a key. Old brass, heavier than it looked, the spare to our former home, the one Marcus thought he owned, but that I'd held title to until the day I revoked it. I turned it over once, let it sit in my palm, then closed the box again, and slid it under the bed. Not out of bitterness, not out of grief, just done. That chapter had been read, underlined, and shelved. Nah. On Christmas Eve, we didn't have a tree, so Mia taped green construction paper to the wall and pinned string lights to its shape. Leo made hot cocoa. We wore socks that didn't match, and watched a movie we'd all seen 3 times but still laughed through anyway. It wasn't grand, it wasn't polished, but it was warm, and quiet, and real. And when Mia fell asleep in my lap and Leo leaned his head on my shoulder, I realized I hadn't just survived. I'd rewritten everything in a new language no one could ever steal. Bye. So if you're watching this somewhere in the world and you're holding your breath, waiting for someone else to choose you, stop waiting. Choose the quiet, choose the paint, choose the door with your name on the key, because sometimes the loudest kind of revenge is learning to live without anyone's permission.